engage with the latest AEC technologies and tools, architecture, engineering, and construction. We are so happy and excited to have James and Steve from Giraffe and Regrid today, and we're going to learn a lot about the exciting work and projects they are working on. I'm going to quickly introduce them, our guest speakers, to you, and then I'll hand it over to them. James is the CRO of Giraffe and a leader skilled at guiding traditional enterprises through data transformation. As part of the founding team at Giraffe, James has successfully led its go-to-market strategy globally, growing business market share. James is pivotal in educating how commercial real estate can unlock, utilize, and leverage its data across capital, consultants, and governing bodies by driving the commercialization of the SaaS business. With a combined background in enterprise leadership, data, and SaaS technology, James encompasses a unique perspective on where the AEC industry is headed and what the steps are to get there. He's driven by his passion for the potential for commercial real estate shift to cloud data and the opportunity that awaits. James lives in Orlando, Florida with his family. Hi, James.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Sure. Steve is serving as Chief Revenue Officer for Regrid. Steve is responsible for driving the growth strategies and client relationships, building a top-performing revenue generation team. Steve brings deep location data and analytics, spatial technologies, and subscription business to the role. Having performed executive leadership roles across sales, business development, product management, and marketing for software companies through his career, serving most recently as General Manager of the location-based analytics segment of Lightbox Re. Steve's leadership teams have consistently achieved major corporate objectives, including IPO, investment from major VCs and PE firms, and profitable growth. San Diego-based, Steve's outside interests include architecture, historic restoration, basketball, community service, and a good book. Hi, Steve, and welcome.
Well, thanks for having me. Nice to meet you, Nick Mouse, and good to see you again, James.
Great. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to James for the presentations. We look forward to it.
Great, thank you. Well, I'm going to dive right in. I know that it's always good to get to the punch when you're on an online event, so I'm going to get right into what we have to share today. We are really excited about this presentation because it is the first chance we've had publicly to talk about our partnership with Regrid and some of the really exciting things that Giraffe is doing in partnership with Regrid to augment and expand on the use cases that we found our users are really in need of. So I thought I would start by, you obviously know who we are now, but to give you a quick overview of who Giraffe is. We are a platform, a SaaS platform, cloud-based platform on a mission to create better cities. And we were founded by architect, engineer, and a planner who were all working in Australia on tier one projects, several hundred million plus, many times, seeing the same issues over and over again, where data, the lack of access to good data, and then the lack of interoperability between systems, and the kind of inefficiencies that generates in the planning cycle. I mean, some of the stories that came out of that time as consultants is hilarious, where you have a developer giving a brief and then the architect does the feasibility on the site next door and then sends it back and the architect loses their mind 6 weeks later. And so really that pain point of communication and interpretation between different skill sets and advice that's really needed to do a thorough underwriting is where the genesis of Giraffe is. So we're on a mission to help create better cities, and we do that by connecting people, projects, and data through the Giraffe platform. I personally come from an analytics background, and I've brought the sort of enterprise data rigor through to Giraffe. I'm going to let Steve introduce himself and talk a little bit about Regrid, and then I'm going to share about the products that we've co-created for our users.
Sure. Thanks, James. And interesting as you allude to the origins of Giraffe and the inefficiencies and the challenges in getting good data organized in order to advance major projects such as that. Well, at Regrid, we are all about good data. We are a location intelligence company, a spatial data company. We're a leading provider of land parcels, parcel records for every property in the country. And our data is deployed into maps and applications such as the Giraffe applications and spatial analytics, time and time again as a authoritative base of understanding about the property of this country.
Awesome.
Wonderful.
Great intro. Well, what we're going to share is a little bit about the product that we have co-created, and we're going to do a demonstration. So Steve, I think we have a few other slides here to keep talking about Regrid and sharing those slides. You're more than welcome to, otherwise we'll dive right in.
Okay. So actually, my slides are kind of in the middle of your. Okay, appreciate it.
Yeah,
so I guess let's hone in on the specific Regrid solution that is in this partnership with your team there at Giraffe, and it is our nationwide parcel database. We are a preeminent provider of a nationwide parcel database that is now covers more than 3,115 counties in the country, includes Puerto Rico and Virgin Islands and U.S. territories. There's over 152 million parcel geometry and parcel insight records in our database, and we've really embarked on a significant coverage map expansion such that coverage map is 99% of the U.S. It's got but a few challenging counties left to go to 100% completeness, and we've really been driving on that faster than anyone else in our category. We also strive, and it's our responsibility, to keep the data current. So we have a very aggressive updating cycle that deploys through to our clients and partners like Giraffe, and we deliver updates to our database each and every month to our licensing clients. And the last bullet here just references a role that parcel data plays, and it's a role, as you demo your Giraffe app here, will be evident. And it is that role that to a parcel, lots of other data sets, external data sets, internal data sets to an enterprise can be related to location. And we've got a number of mechanisms, spatial and tabular mechanisms, by which that matching can occur. So that's kind of a profile of our national parcel database. And how we do our business, and I appreciate the opportunity to kind of talk about our business on whole. We build our data sets on our own cloud platform. We affect delivery to our clients, to their clouds, sync to their clouds, delivery to their into their apps. We have an enterprise grade, highly performant RESTful API, which allows our parcel data to be accessed and integrated with an API, which saves a lot of enterprises from having to actually manage and source and ETL and handle large data files, is the integration of the API. And really, parcel data, what we do, can be integrated into a wide variety of applications that enterprises can construct. Here we're talking about your application, but it also can be deployed on an application built on any mapping base that exists out there.
Super. Well, that's really helpful, Steve, and thank you for sharing. I can just say, I know I threw you right in the deep end there, but the reason we chose to partner with Regrid is because of the kind of business that they're building and the kind of people that they are. And that's important for us as we're selecting who our partners are in the market, that it's modern, it takes an innovative approach, but then also they're great people to deal with, and we've had a pleasure dealing with them. So what we're here to talk about is early stage planning reimagined. And what I'm going to show is a series of demos that talk to how modern tool sets and how data that's as good as the Regrid data set empowers a different way of working. And we're going to focus on 3 use cases. The first use case is identifying development opportunities either for yourself or on behalf of a client, and conducting a feasibility study. And obviously the parcel that feasibility relates to is enormously important. It's the orienting, physical asset that you're ultimately going to end up procuring. Secondly, we're going to look at how you can then automate those business cases and scale them out massively. And third, we're going to do the same thing, but from the perspective of a government client, or if you are yourself working in government, looking at, say, transit-oriented development or zoning uplift. And we're going to do it all roughly in about 20 minutes. So a quick overview of the Giraffe platform. We are a mapping-based platform. You'll see it in about 3 minutes. And we have historically focused on map-based design and analytics. And what we mean by design and analytics is that you can draw your concept on a map in context. You can have all the GIS data in the world brought into your environment, but also as you draw, you get automated takeoffs and numbers, and you can use those as the basis for the calculations that you do. Today, we're announcing this partnership with Regrid, which is unlocking sort of further to the left or earlier in the life cycle of a project where you're still identifying appropriate opportunities. And we work with a lot of architects and engineers who, on behalf of their clients, are identifying sites that are valuable and could work for a particular brief that a developer has. So we're going to show you that. And then we're also at the same time releasing an analytics module. And the analytics module allows you to build out custom spreadsheets or calculations or even applications to help you do automated analysis, really as quickly as dragging and dropping. Additionally, we have custom applications and a public engagement tool as well to help you then take what you've done, either do further warranted analyses or go and present that to the public. So ultimately, what we're going to focus on here is how you can build a strong pipeline based on the parcel data of Regrid, use your own historical context as well as the tax historical context, and then the outcomes of all that being embedded on the cloud database. So let me throw right over now to a demo, because we've done a lot of talking and it's much better to do some showing. So I'm going to close this down and open up Giraffe. So Giraffe is a spatial platform, and you'll notice as I zoom out, you can see here we're looking at the United States. Our company is originally from Australia, but the platform works globally. So everything happens on a map in situ, and each one of these blue bubbles is a project or a site that I myself researched. And as I build out my database of sites that I'm looking at, Giraffe is keeping track of that and keeping it stored against my user profile or against my organization's profile. And that becomes an invaluable resource because all the data is structured. If you think about a BIM file, everybody does BIM slightly differently. And whilst there's great data in BIM, it's often trapped and isolated in, the way the particular user works, which makes large-scale analyses quite difficult. Everything within Giraffe is highly structured and formatted, which unlocks a whole bunch of peripheral opportunity as it relates to the data. And we'll touch on that in a little bit. Some of the key elements that are worth noticing is within Giraffe, you can bring in any GIS data. So if I zoom into, say, the city of Houston, and I'm still finding my bearings. I think this is Houston right here. Yes, it is. I can open up a project here that, for instance, has a whole bunch of public data that I imported from the city of Houston. So this is just data that I connected with a quick Esri map server connection. We also serve a whole bunch of public data layers within Giraffe. So think of things like oil wells. You can see the oil well locations over here. Transport plan from the city of Houston, Harris County information, here's the metro lines. These are all peripheral things that normally you'd be going through 3 or 4 different systems on. And what Giraffe has lacked, and what some of the shortcomings are of the municipalities around the United States, is a coherent data layer that talks to every parcel in the United States. And that's what Regrid's brought to the table. So we brought that into the Giraffe platform as a layer, which has unlocked a large amount of new use cases. And I'm going to just show you a quick demo right now of some of the use cases that we found our customers are absolutely loving. And we, even without releasing this, our beta customers have been very satisfied and excited about what this is going to unlock. So the middle of the screen here, this is the magic. That's obviously the map. We can draw on this map. We can get analyses. And then over here on the right-hand side is where the brain of Giraffe spits out numbers. This real estate here can be used for a number of different things. And this is where the Regrid application lives. So as I load up the Regrid app, you can see first and foremost, we're coloring the parcels. You know, we're just outside Boston here, and we're coloring those parcels by the zoning information that's in the Regrid schema. So as I move around, not only do I get a great visual cue on what's happening in these particular areas, but if I'm interested in a site, I can just click on it and understand things like, you know, what's the land value, how many square feet is it, who owns it, when was the last time it was sold. And there's actually so much great data that Regrid are providing through to us. And we can actually begin to use that to build out a subset or a list of sites that we might want to pursue or do some deeper feasibilities on. So let's go ahead and add that to our selection. Maybe there's a few others that we want to go and have a look at. This guy up here, the zoning code is RS, which I assume is some kind of residential zoning. I'm not an expert on regional Boston. And then maybe there's one up here that we want to add to our selection as well. Now, at this point, we have a number of different options. We can either bring these into the one project that I'm in right now, and a project for us is just a way of storing information. And we found some customers love to do that and keep track of different sites or opportunities that they are thinking of, almost like a CRM. Or we can say, you know what, let's isolate this down to just one specific site and do some deeper analyses on it. So that's what I'm going to do right now. So I'm going to uncheck. If I want to bring it in, I can just bring it into one project. I can say add to current project. And that'll bring them in as geometries, and then I can classify those, give them a land use, assign them to a layer. I'm going to leave that for now, but I'm going to come back to it in a minute. The one site that we did want to look at is this One Concord Avenue site. So let's go ahead and create a new project off the back of this. We'll call this feasibility 123. So now I am creating a whole new project within Giraffe. This is a record within the Giraffe database, and the foundation of it, or the boundary that it's going to be defined, is the boundary of the parcel as provided to us by Regrid. We can also bring in the owner information and store that against the project if that's something that is important to you and you want to do some analyses or almost manage the deal like a CRM. Use Giraffe almost like a CRM. So you can see here we've got this wild and wonderful parcel. And what we might want to do here is start imagining what a layout might look like for the purposes of a residential complex. Maybe we do a walk-up style thing. And there's a million questions we have to ask at this point. You know, how big is the site? How much do we have to park it? What's the yield going to be? Does it stack up from a financial point of view? And this is where Giraffe really sings. So we've just skipped an enormous amount of work by being able to see the parcels and then use them as the boundary. But now we can do the really difficult work, which is what you guys excel at, and start laying out this site. So we have a whole suite of drawing tools at our fingertips here that we can pull up and start having a play. Something like this is probably going to be garden. Maybe, it would be slightly different. We can just start drawing. As I lay down objects here, you'll notice that on the right-hand side, I start seeing some information about what I've just drawn. And honestly, I'm no designer, but you'll see quite quickly here, even my skill set can be unlocked. And if there are other GIS data that we want to look here, like perhaps it's wetland data or look at the contours, we can bring that in as well. But assuming we've done that, we're just going to start laying down a quick site plan here. So this data is calculated. It's not so much sourced externally. It's based on literally what I'm drawing on the map. You can see I just threw some this garden style building down. It's 270 feet by 100, which is maybe a bit of an obnoxiously sized building. But as I draw it, you see over here, I can see what my yield is. I can see my net rentable. how much of the site is covered by building footprint, how much parking I'm going to need to build, the total height of the project, how much facade area we have. And some of these are calculated based on the geometries, and some of them are calculated based on our assumptions. So I can dive in here to our usage editor. I can find my garden apartments tab, and I can begin to understand, all right, what do we actually mean by garden style apartment? And this might be a conversation we have with our client, or it might be something that we look to do on our own accord, or if we're doing something at scale, we might be working on our own assumptions of what a garden style apartment is. But we can just come in here and mess with all these things. For instance, let's change the size of the dwellings. We could say that the studios are larger. I found in the US, everything's a little bit bigger than it is in Australia. So why don't we crank these up? Based on our market intel, we know that we're not going to sell many 3s here, but studios 1s and 2s is going to be very valuable. And actually, we want to go take the time to add in some expenses here. So I'm going to throw in a line item called base build. It's in the construction category. And I can use the metrics or the calculated areas from Giraffe as the basis for a calculation. So I'm going to go, all right, area, gross build area, it's $180 a square foot. Hit save. I'm going to add in a facade cost. There's no limit to the number of calculations that Giraffe can do. I'm going to say facade, and it said, I don't know what a facade costs these days. Nobody does really. The prices are going bananas. I'm going to add a rental yield. It's based on the net rentable area, and that's going to be $45 a square foot. Okay, so now that I've done that, you'll see my yield over here has changed. We've got a lot more apartments, and I can start throwing down my site plan. I've done my assumptions on what a garden style apartment is. I've got the boundary exactly from the place that from Regrid, so that I know exactly where it should be. And then I can lay out my site plan. Now we could spend some time on this, but that's not what we're here to do. So I will leave it there for the minute. Now, interestingly enough, and I'll just show you for a quick second the financial tab. All of those costs that we added in are now being calculated live. So if I add in another walk-up complex here, notice as I add it, my costs increase. Add it again, you can see them updating on the fly. So obviously this is a terrible plan, but this is where we need users like yourselves to make this thing really sing. So now we have this kind of very quick layout, and we could go through and put in roads and trees and landscaped areas if we want to take the time to do so. We can actually reuse that many, many times over. And this is where things start to get really fast, and the interplay between the Regrid data set and the Giraffe skill set gets very exciting. So let's say we go, okay, well, we understand the feasibility is not quite right on this site, or this is all wetlands data, wetlands location, so we can't put anything over here, and we're not going to get the achieved density because of that. So this site's not going to work. Let's look at another site. We can pop straight back into Regrid, open up our search again, and perhaps one of those other parcels we were looking at, let's say this one over here, is more appropriate. I'm going to go ahead and create a new project on that one. And instead of rebuilding everything from scratch, I can actually reference that previous project. Or maybe it was a project that we worked on back in 2019. It doesn't really matter too much. I can say, open my design library, go to the last project that I did. That one was called Feasibility 123. And at my fingertips are all of those shapes and assumptions and costs that we built out in the previous model. Or maybe we think, no, let's go back to that, the gold standard we have. I've got a series of template projects. for a garden style. This one we spent a lot of time on. In fact, we even have all the detailed design documents ready to go on that one. Let's add it into the project. And then it says, do you want to bring in all the assumptions? And what we mean by assumptions are the product mix types, but also the costs as well. Say yes, bring them in. In fact, replace what we mean by garden style in this project. And then we can begin our layout. And all of that data is already in there. Our costs are in there. Let's bring that one back up. Garden apartments, space build, facade, our tenant income. You know, all we're doing now, instead of thinking about what it means, we're adjusting it for the market. And this is where your market intel becomes incredibly valuable. We can see the return on costs quite quickly just from, 2 seconds worth of dragging and dropping. So that's the vision that we have, and I'll show you a well-designed Giraffe project so that you can imagine about something better than my design capability in just a few minutes. But I wanted to show the interplay between the Regrid dataset and how it changes the concept of early stage design work and really becomes about a capital allocation problem. What is the highest and best site we can possibly find for the brief? And the interplay between those two sets of data is quite powerful. So here's a fully spec'd up Giraffe project with a designer's eye on it. And if you're interested in learning more about the design tools within Giraffe, I'd encourage you to head to the website, and we're more than willing to plug in with you guys to do a more personal demo. This is our product Places, and it's taking all those same concepts, whether it's the Regrid dataset, the local cities, transportation network, all the data that we drew within the Giraffe platform itself, and telling a story, a public story, through a development project that we're looking at. This is a particular project within the Sydney city, and the idea is it's attracting tech talent to a neighborhood they're calling Tech Central. And each one of these steps is a highly curated public marketing tool that has lots and lots of data that historically would have been developed as a 20, 30-page document. And now it's this great interactive slideshow that tells you everything you need to know about why you should consider business in this area. So maybe just to take one last step back, I want to very quickly show another use case. And I think I still have time, Ignaz, is that correct?
Yes, yeah, we are good with time.
Okay, great. I'm going to show one last use case for the Regrid dataset, and then I'll show a little bit around enterprise data management. Actually, I'll do that first. It's important to know that every time you create a project within Giraffe, you're essentially creating a record in a database that you can use to manage either your own processes or processes on behalf of your clients. You can group those projects on behalf of clients. And so what I'm showing you now is the same data or the same projects, but grouped via, instead of showing it on a map, grouped by a project status.
Nice.
And so I can just quickly say, all right, well, of all the sites we just looked at, these ones are now, we know, I don't have permission to do so. We have full enterprise governance on that project. It's not mine, so I can't change the status. But these ones are mine, and we know, okay, well, Boulevard Way, that project is now no longer feasible. Or we just got the results back from our consultant, and or from the client, and we now know we're not going to pursue that, or it needs to go now to DA approval or whatever it might be. This becomes also a very powerful way to monitor your portfolio and your pipeline, empowering you to be super, super fast and super data-driven. So the last use case I wanted to show, and I know I'm getting bored of the sound of my own voice, so I'm going to stop very soon, is a zoning use case. And I'm going to pop out here, even though I know that Houston zoning is complex. I do love this particular data set, so I'm going to just pop out here and have a quick look. One of the things that's going nuts here in the US is transit-oriented development all across the country. And often the transit-oriented development use case is identifying parcels in a certain neighborhood or around a certain metro station that have the opportunity to be up-zoned or have an uplift of some kind. And that kind of question of if we change the zoning from this to this, or if we up the capacity from this to this, what is that capacity change? What's the delta? And then how do we make a business case around that? So this is where the combination of the site search, Regrid powered data, and our analytics module starts to become actually kind of crazy. So I'm actually going to pop back to that Boston project. And I think it was for something or other. Let's just zoom up there. I've done lots and lots of demos, so here we go. I'll just go like this. I'm going to start a new project. And I'm going to draw a boundary. Doesn't matter where the boundary is, we can always move it. And I'll hit save. And then I'm going to pretend that we're throwing down a new metro station here somewhere, and we're going to do an evaluation on the uplift or the delta between two scenarios. Okay, so if we go to bring in the Regrid dataset. Open up the app. And let's imagine that there is a new metro station going in right here. And I know it's ludicrous, but let's imagine that that's where it is. The first thing we might want to do is say, okay, well, let's grab all the parcels in this vicinity that have a particular zoning code on them. So I'm choosing the criteria which I want to filter the sites down by now. The zoning code that I'm interested in is both the RS ones that we looked at and the RO one. So there you can see Giraffe is highlighting the exact sites that Regrid is saying have RS and ND. Whoop, we want RO, not ND. Now we might say, okay, well, let's identify the parcels that are over a certain size. So that are over, say, 6,500 square feet. And you can see it's dropping out some of those parcels. And let's do it between 6,500 and 10,000. Okay, here's a few, here's a handful. So I'm going to add each of these to my selection. And we're going to add them to the current project. Now, first thing I need to do is assign them a land use or a zoning template. So Giraffe ships with a generic land use that has some basic information on it. And so I'll just go up and edit that right now. So at the moment, the building coverage is 0.4, the target FSR is 1. So maybe we bring that down and say what is currently on the site is 0.5. And the maximum height is 26 feet. So I just need to add in a height property. I can spell. 26 feet. There we go. And we'll assign each of these that are that generic land use. Now, let's create a new land use that's our new concept. We'll get from the same thing, and we'll call this R3. All right. And this will be our uplift. And the FSR will be a little bit higher, let's say 1, and our allowable height might be something like 40 feet. We'll change the color just so we get a good understanding of what the color might be of the difference. And we can go through and change our other metrics like how much building coverage there is, hardscape, softscape, etc. And really, we're just informing a database for us to go and do analyses on. So now let's say in our analytics tab, the use case here is a zoning use case. So when we bring in the zoning template, we're actually bringing in a bunch of calculations that are looking at that usage and identifying and then crunching the numbers to tell us a whole bunch of different assumptions. Now we can go in here, I'm not going to go into this because we don't have time, and look at what this is, but really we're just using the built form model and we're translating it into an analytical outcome. And what each of these is really just a way to express some math, much like Excel. It's very, very flexible. And you can see here we're bringing in the total number of dwellings, and I can show you how the total number of dwellings are calculated, total attacks per dwelling as a previous measure, and we're multiplying them together. And there's lots of those going on. We've built out 5 or 6 different measures here. You can build your own measures, you can build your own categories. These are just the pre-baked examples for the purpose of this demo. So let's assign, you can see we've got this, this framework here for scenario 1. And if we wanted to just do scenario 2, I can add that in. And for scenario 2, I'm going to copy all of these guys, paste them onto scenario 2. And in this case, I'm going to assign them the R3 usage. Now, default, it's going to add to the same calculation, but I can say, you know what, I want you to do a separate analysis here on these 2 different scenarios. Scenario 1, and then I forgot to assign these to both layers, so let's just do that really quick. We'll go back to parcels, and now I have this dual analysis here where I can see, and what we didn't change was the height on R3, which we said it was, where's the max height? 40 feet, so let's change that to 40. We can see that we've now got modeled up 2 different scenarios. We can see visually what they look like and mathematically the difference between the 2. One's going to yield a taxable outcome of about 130,000 versus 65,000, number of dwellings difference. And we can put that up over an enormous size. There's no size restrictions within Giraffe. And it's all based on the real parcel data. So you can see how quickly I did that, how quickly I got to an outcome. And if we're looking at a really big area, how quickly you could go back and forth between these different types of zoning scenarios or development capacity scenarios. So there's a few different use cases for you. The sky is the limit, but we are so pumped about this partnership with Regrid because it's opening up things that our customers have always been doing, but it's solving the first part of the problem of where are the sites I'm interested in and what is the underlying tax data that relates back to them. The boundaries are valuable and the underlying data or the metadata is incredibly powerful. So I wanted to share all that with you, and I will hand back to our moderators now for any questions that we might have.
Sure. Thank you so much, James. This was super cool and exciting. I love in like one place, so many possibilities. And it seems like the platform is so user-friendly and intuitive that it's as if it's been designed not just for designers and architects and professionals, right? So it seems like anyone can use it, even like for your own house or just like an individual without any design experience. Is it true?
Yeah, we found that the use cases are very broad. I literally modeled up a renovation I was considering in my house, which I'd show you, but then you'd know where I live. And it was very handy because, either you're drawing it somewhere, because the drawing is the basis of the calculation. It's either on a piece of paper and then you're doing the numbers on the back of a napkin, or it's much more intuitive in a platform like this. We have found that the users that get the most value out of it are enterprise developers and particularly consultants in the AEC industry, whether it's architects or engineers who are doing an immeasurable amount of site plans and concept studies and business cases and tax assessments. There's so many use cases that depend on the physical asset that's actually drawn. And when that data is trapped in a platform like BIM, or even though BIM is fantastic, but often there's so much in there that's not particularly useful for this early stage. And so we've tried to keep it fluid. And then we found what's happened as a consequence of that is you may have the design professional doing the drawing, and then a cost planner doing the cost plans, and then the feasibility analyst doing the analytics plan. And they're all collaborating on the same project, but they're all doing slightly different things. So yeah, you're right. It relates to many, many people.
Yeah,
I'll just throw in concurrence. I mean, you have so much data that is interacting with each other and relating to each other in this platform, and the intuitiveness, the performance of the application really just allows, the optimal decision making and analysis and consideration. And at the end of the day, the user is going to find the best economic opportunity for the property and the type of construction that they want to pursue.
Yep, I think that's bang on, Steve. And it's very interesting actually. I spoke to a few consultants just this last week, and a lot of the feedback is that when you're talking to a client, often because you're a gifted design professional, you can solve the question on the call. The developer calls and says, hey, I'm looking at this site. You can navigate there in Giraffe, get the boundary from Regrid, do a concept on the call, and give the answer of what the rough yield will be. And it's not just drawing from data, but it's also drawing from expertise, which is your expertise. And when those two things come together, it's incredibly powerful. Giraffe needs somebody who knows what they're doing behind the driver's seat. But when they are there, it's very, very powerful.
Yeah, for sure. So can you describe a little, James or Steve, how early stage planning and site discovery look like before Giraffe, and like technologies like Giraffe and data providers like Regrid?
Steve, I don't know if you want to have a go at that one, or I'm happy to your call.
I'll probably just tee it up and then let you answer it more directly from the Giraffe perspective. But
sure,
the amount of data to pursue real estate development and optimize an opportunity, to discover an opportunity and optimize that data, wildly disparate. You have to go hunt it down. It's in numerous forms, currency. What's all this data at your fingertips in this highly performant app really just drives that decision making in ways that if you're looking across paper and at one system and then another system and trying to integrate your project across multiple platforms and multiple different formats, you just don't really get on to optimizing the opportunity. You're spending the time wrangling the data and trying to make sense of it.
Yep, I would say that's very accurate, Steve, from what I have seen as well. And I've probably spoken to thousands of AEC and development professionals over the last few years, and it's to be honest with you, it's one of the most non-digital industries that I've ever come across. And some of that's for very good reason, because there are great workflows and processes in place that professionals love. And then some of it is because the industry is afraid of technology. And particularly on the development side, I've spoken to a lot of developers who draw their site plans before they talk to their architect on a piece of paper, and then do the math in Excel. And we love Excel. We've taken a lot of cues from Excel. But if you really get into the nitty gritty, they're looking on the city's GIS platform, identifying the parcel. Then they may have a subscription service to some kind of parcel provider that's telling them who the owner is, so they can call the owner and try and build their own pipeline. And they might be doing all of that without ever having done any kind of feasibility, which is, you can imagine the amount of time that gets wasted. And then once the consultant gets engaged, the consultant's often being asked for a favor because, the developer doesn't want to spend any money on getting a feasibility study done. So it's a lose-lose, or what's happening right now is a lose-lose. And what Giraffe enables is a win-win for everybody, where the developer can move at speed, the consultant can provide their expert advice, in a lightning fast way, and it takes no time at all. So this meeting of the minds, when stuff is still elastic and may not even happen, we can provide a short, sharp, high-quality investment from all the parties that gets to an outcome really quickly.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks so much. So we're gonna open it up to the floor. If anyone from the audience has any question, please feel free to type it. So someone, Rami, asked the question earlier. So what's your vision for the next step of this tool?
Good question. We obviously can't share all of our roadmap because it's a little bit of a secret and it's a very competitive space. But our hope is that, and what we're finding our customers are asking us for, is that Giraffe is really a platform that enables a data-driven view, whether you are a developer, an architect, or an engineer, that can unlock an enormous amount of efficiency in the network. And so what we haven't really touched on today is the app ecosystem. And part of Giraffe is it's built on a series of open APIs. That's how we integrate with Regrid so easily and effectively, and they're fantastic APIs. But our partners are building out solutions that provide advice later on down the pipeline of the development as well. So if you're getting to a point where you need to, for instance, do an engineering services plan and understand what the actual efficiency of the building is, we partner with a company in Australia called Neuron.build who do that in an automated way. So you can click a button and get your engineering services plan and all the documentation back and update the efficiency on the building with the click of a button. And so we'll see Giraffe will ultimately have a few of those things going on at once, where you can talk to your experts through programmatic data-driven advice, which ultimately informs how you deploy your capital, across your portfolio or across the nation.
Wonderful. Thank you. Steve, is there anything you would like to add? Okay, great. So what would you say is the biggest change that an organization would see, switching to this great technology from like the old, fashioned way they used to do things?
Sorry, say that again one more time.
So what is the biggest change and also challenge an organization will see from this data shift to digitization?
Yeah, great question. So in AEC or consulting space, one of the things we hear all the time is every designer I've ever met is different. All of them are experts in their own right, and all of them have figured out the best way to do their job with their favorite tools of choice. And we're not interested in replacing their favorite tool of choice because they've become very, very good at it. And I think often a tool like Giraffe can seem like it's going to replace your favorite Rhino hotkeys and Grasshopper scripts. And what we encourage is to start in Giraffe a step prior. Do the really early stage work in Giraffe, and then put it wherever you want. So all of the export functionality within Giraffe, you can basically put it into any application. And it's really for the AEC industry, they're already very digital. It's more that step prior, where you can be rapid, fast, awesome. And a lot of the design tools are very similar and familiar to people who use all CAD packages. And then you can go push it to your favorite tool of choice when the building needs to be shaped and actually be more than just a blob on a map. And so that would be the challenge for AEC, I think, is thinking a step prior to their favorite tools of choice. And then for developers, it's educating them on why they should be digital. And I think some of them see it and they get it straight away, and others need a little coaching. But the proof is really in the pudding. When you're able to move on a site 10 times quicker than your competitors, sort of speaks for itself.
One better deal.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
That's the ROI is huge when you can find what fits your profile and can find the opportunity to pursue the property and head into the development. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
that's bang on,
sure.
Steve.
So James, are there case studies and use cases? I'm asking this for AC Plus that can be shared on publicly online, because I've realized that those use cases and cases are very powerful in convincing organizations that you have to do things differently.
Yeah, we do. One of the things about this industry is no one wants to tell you their secrets, so it's very difficult for us to get logos. But we can share. I'd be able to share, more in a few months when we get some written permissions. But I can anecdotally share some stories about clients who have changed the way that they're doing business. One I'd like to share in particular is an institutional developer out of Australia who have adopted the platform in a major way. They have their cost planners doing the cost planning through the financial tab. They have their business case, people using the analytics thing that's been in beta for application that's been in beta for the last few months, to build out their whole business cases. And these business cases used to take them 6 weeks to develop within Excel. They're now automated and sit in Giraffe. They have their architects who do their architectural design in Giraffe, and they're creating a standard of defaults and libraries that relate to the kind of projects that they build. So they can reference, let's bring in the standard commercial building that has exactly the layouts we know and that we've done a million times. Not only that, but it relates through to all the super families and families of detailed design components in Revit. So to go from we have some capital that we need to deploy through to we found a site, we've done a feasibility study, we've submitted the business case, it's gotten approved, and we've done the detailed design, is now 10x quicker than it was when they started. And the amount that they're spending on wasted time is massively reduced. And everybody's expertise comes to the fore. So everybody wins there. It's not cutting anybody out. We're not a believer in the kind of technology that just replaces expertise. It brings people's expertise to the fore, and that's core to the Giraffe ethos, is that it's a collaborative tool that brings people and professionals particularly into the same environment to make decisions much quicker.
Wonderful. So we can't wait to showcase and feature some of these case studies on our platform, AEC-tech. So
Great.
We have one more question. Would it be possible? So Amir Afifi is asking this. Hi, Amir. So he's asking, would it be possible to import a massing design into the platform and get these data info calculations?
The answer is yes, particularly if you have a shapefile. If you can bring it in as a shapefile, it's geolocated. That being said, every design platform is different. So if you bring it in and it hasn't got assigned usages to it in the Giraffe format, Giraffe's not going to know what to do with it from an analytics perspective. But that's very easy. You can just say import as shapes, and then you just click on all the ones that have the type of usages that you want, and then it'll extrude them out of the ground. I could show you an example, but it's on the website. You can go and have a quick look. The answer is yes, although it's often, as quick to just start again in Giraffe. But the answer is yes, and I'm happy to help if you have a particular project that you'd like to explore. Send me an email, and we'll see about getting it imported for you. You can bring in any of those files here. I'll just show you really quickly. If you have a shape file, you can import it. And then as you bring it in as a layer, you can say convert all of those shapes to Giraffe geometries.
Nice.
Any other questions?
And as far as your target users, you mentioned there are developers, builders, designers. So is there anyone else who's using this technology?
Yep, brokers love Giraffe. They love to, because you can imagine for them communicating the value to either a prospective seller or a prospective buyer is so much easier when it's in 3 dimensions, or when it's cleaned up in a media kit like this. Brokers, there's a lot of use cases. If you care about the built form in some way, then you're probably a target client for us. Urban designers, urban planners, obviously they're the heart and soul of the platform. Yes, the list goes on, but yeah, I would say brokers might be the one that you didn't mention.
Wonderful. Okay, great. Thank you so much, James. Thank you so much, Steve. Amir said thank you. Rami said this is a great platform. So we have a couple of other comments. So the video will be saved on our YouTube channel. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, and follow our future events. And then all the comments, all the questions will be saved with the video on YouTube. So if there is no other comment or point, James, Steve, we can wrap up.
I might just say
Acknowledge.
that we're really
Yes.
pumped about this partnership. It's available today. If you're interested, head to our website and either one of us will reach out to you. But Steve, thank you so much for partnering with our company, and Ignaz for having us on. This has been awesome.
Look forward to continuing the relationship. Impressive app. Let's work with you to drive adoption and successful developments.
Amen.
Great. Thank you
all.
so much. This was great. It was really a pleasure having you both. Thanks again. Have a great rest of the day.
Bye-bye.
Cheers. You too. Bye.
Bye-bye.